Hi, and welcome to Spiritual Alchemy Energy, the podcast with Julie. Tonight I have Karin Inana.
Yes.
Okay.
Karin Inana, yeah.
Karin Inana,
Mm-hmm.
author and healer. This is her book, Heart Flame Healing. Welcome tonight. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Yeah.
We were just like talking earlier. This whole podcast came from the pandemic. I didn't know what I was going to do with my business. I just opened an office and I still wanted to reach people and work with other healers and have them share what they do with other people. And so that's how this all came into play, partly as I was approached by another podcast to come on their podcast and ended up doing my own. So anyways, let's talk about your book, Heart Flame Healing.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself before we dive into some questions from the book?
Well, what is it that you would like that you would like to know? Then,
well, a lot of healers have their traumas that they're trying to heal. They go through, a catalyst that moves them to become that healer too.
Yeah. Well, it definitely, was true for me too. I was born in Germany to parents that were teenagers in the Second World War. And, really intense, terrifying experiences that, those were the stories that were told at my grandparents' house. That's what my parents talked about. And my grandparents and my parents lived it. My parents were children. And so, the bombs were falling, they were going to bunkers and huddling with people, holding hands as tight as they could because the house above them was bombed and falling apart. And this was an occurrence that just kept on happening, and people dying and things getting destroyed. Like war is a just terrible, terrible thing. And so I was born 15 years after the war ended. And, my parents were traumatized. My mother was severely traumatized. My grandparents too, but they came out a little bit differently. But my parents, they went kind of like numb inside somewhere. And they didn't have any psychological help. And so I was born in Germany into that post-war trauma. And one of the experiences that I had, that I continuously had when I was living in Germany, is that I was afraid. And I didn't know even what I was afraid of. But the thing that I was most afraid of was war, and atomic war. And I would dream of war, and I would dream of my dad being shot. And I spent a lot of time there. And most of it because I'm an empath. I'm a high-level empath. And my parents had no idea. Both of my parents are deceased now, and now they know who I am because we've contacted, through the ethers, them from the other side, as did my grandparents. So life was really rough for me. Like, I couldn't be in my body. I wasn't in my body. My nervous system was racked by fear that wasn't my own. It was my mother's that I had inherited in the womb when she was pregnant with me. And all of the blood-soaked earth around me, just couldn't escape it. And what happened is, it like these fears and the dreams of war, that stopped when I came to the United States.
Oh, wow.
And it also, because, when your nervous system, I know that, you had very traumatic experiences, that when your nervous system is racked with fear, there's also what comes in is that kind of like recklessness, because you don't have anything to lose. So you do really risky things, like traveling to countries where there's war, like Syria, when I was 18.
Mm.
Yeah, like doing things like that are really dangerous and stupid. Hitchhiking to Syria while there was a war going on.
Oh, we're gonna go towards.
I guess I think, and the whole thing was a very educating, enlightening experience for me. And I think I wanted to conquer my fear, and there was shooting on going around me, and I wanted to see how I was reacting to it. It was kind of like, it wasn't a very conscious decision, but when I thought about it later, I went there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I went there for a reason. And, I don't regret the experience, but talking about it, like you go as an 18-year-old girl, hitchhiking to Syria, apple-eyed cheeks, that's really dangerous.
Well, you ended up living in Australia then.
Yeah, I went to Australia too. I had sort of like a dark night of the soul before, I stepped into my healership. I was a massage therapist, and I got, what you call compassion fatigue, and I was also in my Saturn return. So, like old traumas, like kept coming up to heal it, to solve it. But also, I was on this thing like, I want to go and find myself, because what I didn't realize is that I had lost myself in trauma. So, that realization just came later. So I went traveling to Australia, and I partied hard, and I took all kinds of drugs that, you shouldn't be taken in those kind of quantities. And, there was a moment where I'm going, I'm like, surprised I'm alive, what I allowed myself to get into. But this is what I was saying, is it's like, when your nervous system is racked with fear and you feel like you don't have anything to lose, it's like, it's easy to be reckless. But I don't regret it at all, because it was so rich for me. The fabric was just so rich, and I was really present to it. But I was also present to the horror to it. Like at the certain point, I was looking at myself and I'm going, what are you doing to yourself? You're 28 years old, you're taking all these drugs, you're drinking, you're smoking. I was riding on this kind of like magic carpet that, because I'd saved a little bit of money. But really, I was like, I had a big empty space inside. I didn't know where I was going. I was like bankrupt in every way. And, that's what I realized, that while going, I really, like, I had to stare my own bankruptcy, emotional, energetic, not necessarily financially, in the face.
And you decided, and then you decided to come back to the States and go through a detox program.
Yes, I instinctively knew while I was there, because I had taken, I like smoked cigarettes, I drank alcohol, none of which I do now. I like taken massive amounts of ecstasy.
Wow.
And, it really affects your body and affects your emotion, because as high as you go is as low as you go.
Oh.
And yeah, and like also really dangerous. Like my liver started hurting, and I was becoming really scared for myself. And I realized, I'm like, oh, I think I have a little bit of a suicide wish here, because I didn't, it's like, obviously I allowed myself to go that far because, I couldn't feel my own love. And that's what I was looking for. I was looking for love on the outside, and I, didn't have it on the inside. I was looking, and, it was painful. It was painful.
So you met a man, and he kind of helped you out. You ended up going through Barbara Brennan's school.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was kind of an awakening for you.
It was a homecoming, really. It was
right.
a homecoming. It was like, oh, wow, finally I found my place. But there's something that happened earlier that I, want to talk about, because I had this, even though I was in this darkness, I realized that, where I wanted to be. And I had come from, living really healthy and, living an intentional life, as intentional as I, could grasp. And I instinctively was drawn and guided to the Optimum Health Institute, which, as a place for purification, to study the healing powers of natural raw foods, and of course, to detox myself. And it was a really wonderful experience. And I was really so grateful that that was available. And, and then I ended up spending my last $100, and that was a traumatic experience. And what I realized at that moment was that I had been going it all alone. And I'm, because I'm fiercely independent, have always been. And my parents, because they were kind of, traumatized in their own way, they felt like that they could rely on me to always take care of myself and take care of others. So I didn't get that much. I didn't get that much at all. So yeah, and there was that moment when I put my stake in the ground, and I said, when a business partnership, a friendship, it was a past life meeting again with a person, we became business partners, and it was like a whirlwind for 6 months. And this is a person who saw who I am, and who saw my light, and she wanted to support me and also be my mentor, which she was. But then the business venture failed because, at that point I wasn't a very good business person, and neither was she, really. And so when that fell apart, and I really didn't have anything, I didn't have a car, I didn't have an office, I didn't have a place to live, and then I had my last $100 bill. And I looked at the last $100 bill, and it finally dawned on me that I had been going it all alone. And I realized the situation that I was in, and I literally went to my knees and I prayed, and I said, please, God, I prayed to my Father in heaven. My Father, I just realized that he had passed away. My family didn't, inform me until much later. And I went to my knees and I said, please, my Father in heaven, help me now, because now I need it like never before. And I asked for the kind of work. I said, I need a job that is not just a job, but a job that helps me utilize my talents, my gifts, and that advances my talents and my gifts. And boom, an old boyfriend called me, and I was crying. I'm like, I just spent my last $100 bill. And he says, I think I have something for you. So he connected me up to Anne-Marie Bengstrom, who just recently passed away. She was the founder and director of the Ashram Spa and Health Retreat in Calabasas. And that's a boot camp, but a really fantastic body-mind boot camp. And the program there is eat the right food, it was vegetarian, measured portions, mostly raw, all clean. Hike your butt off, do some weights, and then play with others in the pool and get a massage daily. So everything was taken care of for you. your clothes were washed, but it was kind of like a boot camp. And I worked there for 3.5 years. And so that connection was made like boom. And it was because I put the stake in the ground. And it just came to me. And then of course I met, my lovely, wonderful, wonderful, dear friend who I just love so much. And so grateful for, because we made a connection. And I don't make connections with people easily. And we just made a connection, and we realized that we were friends for 2 years before, something more emerged. And we realized very quickly that we knew each other from a very long time ago, a very, very long time ago, and that there was some kind of a contract to fulfill. And so he then, became the person that, provided the resources for me to go to, the Brennan Healing Science School, which had been a dream of mine at this point for 7 years. And I didn't know that I was working, into it all this time. And when I read her book, Hands of Light, something happened, my hara just ignited. I felt it, when I read her book, and I read it cover to cover, and I just devoured it. And then at the end of the book, I got so depressed because I realized I didn't have the funds, to travel to the East Coast for 4 years, to pay for tuition, and how am I going to do it? But I had this feeling of the fire in the belly, the hara was ignited. And then boom, 7 years later, and I just, like, when I filled out the application for the school, I was just crying, because I was like, wow, yeah. And then at the school, I felt like I came home to myself, because what they do there so beautifully is they fully recognize spirit and co-creation with spirit, and it is alive, and that is what I learned, that we are so supported by spirit, uniquely and specifically, and always for the asking. And of course, Barbara and Brennan, who founded the school, she's a NASA scientist. She's an atmospheric scientist. And she would stand on stage and she would do these healings with the whole faculty, all of the students in the room, big ballroom, like nearly 1,000 people. And it was called the Goddess Healing. And she would just go into this very beautiful altered space and be taken over, and she would talk to us about the geometric spaces, shapes that she would see in the room, and angels, their mantle, right, their cloak, just at the ceiling. And this is how tall the angels were. And then she would go, and here I am, I'm a scientist. So she was also at the same time still, I don't know if she was grappling with it, but she was definitely letting us know that she was also, a scientist, and looking at herself and at the experience through the science mind. So it was very exciting, but I can tell you that I never cried more than I cried in those 4 years, because it's like taking Ajax, stepping powder, the corners of your soul.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, things happen, and I never experienced past lives before. I'd gone and learned modalities of healing, massage and yoga and Reiki and directed breath, but I'd never come. Well, that's actually not true. I'd seen a past life on somebody else, but I'd never experienced it. Who I may have been. And so all of that just came flooding forward. And yeah, a really exciting, a really wonderful time, but also it just took so much staying power.
And you're exhausted from doing all this healing on yourself too, right?
Well, but that's, see, it's healer, heal thyself. And that is the motto of the school. And I am so, so grateful for it. And I took everything that I learned there and I applied it to my own healing at night in my room. And I thought everyone else was doing that, but not so. Yeah.
And I'm sure that just being there with your tribe was just like being high all the time too.
Well, I felt like for the first time I was seen and I was held, and I felt like I belong. Before that time, when I went when I went to Australia and Bali and, all these places, I was, what I was looking for was that,
Mm.
to make contact with myself. And there finally, it showed up for me, and it was like a mirror to myself. And all of a sudden I could feel myself more and come forward as the being and the person and the unique being that I am. And it gave me permission.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we're seen, right? When we're not seen, it's hard to come forward into our own being. Like sometimes I've seen babies, right, where somehow the mother, like just in passing, right, where the parents somehow were unable to reflect the core star essence of the child back to them, right? And then, it's like, and I was so surprised. It's like, where is the child? It was like somewhere back in itself, but it was not forward, right? Because somehow the parents were not able to be there in their own core star to make the connection, right? To make deep contact, so that the baby couldn't feel itself. So I knew it was in there and somewhat interacting, but I really saw how important it is to be seen, and to be seen at the level of the core star. And of course, you can only do that if you have your own core star, and that's what I mean by enlightened, that we have all the opportunity to be enlightened to our own light. That's what I mean, to our own light, to feel your own light, to know that you are a unique and divine being onto yourself. And that is also beyond the parenting that we've received. We're actually unique and enlightened beings beyond the parenting that we've received and the conditioning.
It's
but
our soul's truth.
Yeah. But that takes some. I'm so glad that I have, mentors are so important, right? I'm so grateful to my mentors, especially Brooksy Green Barton, who is also, passed over and is on my team. And, to spend many, many years, sitting in a group and with people and, having them see you and respond to you is just really important, especially when you didn't have it from your family. A lot of people have it from their family, but when you didn't have it from your family, I didn't have it from my family.
A lot of healers don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many don't.
But, it's all good. I mean, I'm living my parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So from there, you developed your own healing modality.
Yes. Yeah.
And, I've worked with a lot of healers in the course of the last 5 years, and I've never really had one that addressed the back aspects of the chakras and the auras as deep as you do. So let's talk about the auras, because that is like a big part of what you do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's put this out there that I have worked with Karin many times, many sessions, and I highly recommend her. you will feel wonderful after your sessions, like relaxed and in your body and pain-free. I don't know if other clients have spoke this way about working with you, but let's talk about the auras and
Yeah.
the levels of aura.
Yeah. So, in this work that, I offer a work in the 4 dimensions of our human being. That is the physical body, that is the aura dimension, and the chakra system is an integral part of the aura. And then also the hara level, which is a level deeper than the aura, and that has everything to do with why we have taken a body this time around the first time. Like the reason why we're here is encrypted in our hara, and that is a level deeper than the aura. And then the 4th level is the core star dimension, and the core star dimension is the creative light of God that is you, right? The radiance of the creative light of God that is you as the unique being that you are. So those are all of the dimensions that we work in. But the first thing that I usually look at is the chakra system, to see where the energy is flowing, where it is not flowing, because ultimately what we want, what will heal the body easily, where the body lets go of pain, right, is because the body is designed to let go of pain, and the aura is designed to help us to let go of pain. And so, usually I just look at the chakras to see which ones are functioning and which ones are not functioning and which ones are distorted. And so, we have the first chakra, right? And which is, from the perineum down towards the floor, which governs the legs and the knees and the hips. And then the second chakra in the front governs the reproductive system, but also the emotional body and our creativity. And then in the back, the second chakra in the back, the sacral chakra, that has more to do, which governs your lower back, and that has more to do with quantity of life force energy. If we're in the front, it has to do with quality. In the back, it has to do with quantity. And so there's uniquely different functions from the front to the back. Absolutely. And then, of course, we have a front aspect of the third chakra, a front aspect and the back aspect of the third chakra, and the heart chakra the same, and the 5th chakra the same, and the 6th chakra the same. And then the 7th chakra is the counterpart to the first chakra.
And so let's talk about the layers of the auras and how they relate.
Okay, so the layers of the auras of the aura also relate to the chakras. So you have your first chakra, right, which gives access to the first layer of the field, which relates to the physical body and physical sensations.
Is that the nearest to us or the furthest
Yeah,
away?
that's the nearest to us. That's about, like an inch to an inch and a half. And it can be, if you're looking at it and you're trained to see it, it can, be like grayish blue or it can be gray to, like a brighter blue. And also it has lots of lines of light in it. It's a grid system made up of lines of light. Where the second level of the field, that is related to the second chakra, emotional body, is a fluid kind of matter. So this is where you have, like, ideally rainbow colors, right? But when the emotions get muddy, then it's like the rainbow gets darker.
Interesting.
But it's kind of like a fluid, gaseous level of the field. And then, the third level of the field, which is accessible through your third chakra, and that is, governs the mental body, quality of thoughts and quality and belief systems. And, that is usually yellow in color. And it's also, again, lines of light. And also lines of light that make up the chakras, the cones of the chakras. So when I do restructuring, it is the lines of light that make up the cone of the chakra that get restructured, and then all of the little vortices that go into it too.
So we could go on with the auras, but as I was working with you, or you were working on me and going through these, I would have pains or sensations come up in my body in another chakra area they're all connected, but something comes up to be healed. And so so you tend to address that with an invocation.
You're probably talking about I allow it.
Yes.
Is that what you?
Yes.
And the forgiveness statement, I allow it, and then the forgiveness statement,
yes.
It's like, I allow it is like, those are the words. It's the pathway to freedom. Yeah, so, because when we have a sensation, usually we go, maybe a fear aspect comes in, or it shouldn't be, like a little pain or something. And in this work, it seems almost counterintuitive, maybe to some people that are listening or watching, is we go to the sensation where the discomfort is, right? And maybe in your knee, maybe in your shoulder. It doesn't really matter where it is, even if it's in your eyes or in an organ. And we allow ourselves to be there, and we say, I allow it. We make it our choice to allow it. And what happens there, it's really amazing, because in the moment we say, I allow it, we actually decide to be present there. It's like, this is my body and I allow it. And then many times this thing that, was bothering us, it just leaves, because we're willing to be present there and say, I allow it.
And it's very powerful too.
Yes.
I will testify to that.
I use it in my relationship too.
I'm sure it works on a lot of things.
Yeah, it's like when I have the presence of mind, like while I'm triggered, to say, oh, okay, I allow it.
It's okay.
It really, really, really helps. It does.
Go get the sage out and the salt.
Well, that's later. Yeah.
And then the makeup sex happens. So.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I peeked at your I want to share it. Your website today, not to get off track what we were talking about. See, I want to show your website here.
Okay.
I clicked on Heart Flame Healing, and you distinguish between spiritual versus energy healing. Would you mind speaking to that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear part of what you were saying.
You distinguish between spiritual healing and energy healing.
Yes. So, in spiritual healing, we connect, like energy healing also, it depends on who you talk to, right? And because there are so many different modalities. So, I would say when I was doing Reiki and initiated in Reiki, which was way, way before I, claimed my healership, right? That was sort of like my first way in, but I did see energy spiraling out of my hands. That was, to me, energy healing.
Okay.
Right? Spiritual healing is, it's supported by, my team and my connection to the divine. With Reiki, the connection to the divine wasn't really stressed, or I missed it. But I felt like that was really energy healing. But with the connection to the divine, right, there's a whole nother thing that happens, because we have so much help that we do not access. And spirit and spirit beings, really are here to assist us. Angels, guides, avatars, the creative energy of life itself, right? That we can call up, or the earth. So that's what I would say is like the difference to me.
Okay, that's fabulous. I love that. That makes complete sense. And you already went over that. Soul traumas. Can you talk a little bit about soul traumas? Because
yeah. So soul traumas are traumas that were so deep. Yeah. Like usually soul traumas, we encounter them in past life situations, right? Like one of the soul traumas that, I've experienced was, of course, something that had to be addressed and cleared as I was claiming my healership. And so, what my grandparents and my mom told me is that I was a very quiet baby. I never cried. And also, I was very shy when I was young. I still am, but I sort of like got over it a little bit. And usually I don't like to talk much. Like in a group, I'm the silent one, never really, like even when I was a kid, I didn't talk much. This is, like when I talk about my work, that's the most I ever talk, really. So at Brennan Healing Science, you have to have an assigned therapist healer that helps you through the material that comes up inevitably. And so, I was working with my healer therapist, and I was experiencing eye pain, and he, connected to it, and he pushed into it, and all of a sudden what came up, was that my eyes had been gouged out. And I, of course, went into like momentarily hysteria, right? And then I realized, as the memories kept coming, that my tongue had been cut out. And because you don't die from having your tongue cut out, right? And then the stake was driven through me. So this was a soul trauma. And, these soul traumas, there's a particular behavior that then gets ascribed to your personality. Like people say, oh, she's like this, or this person is like that. But, I was silent for a reason.
It's a personality trait of your soul that came forward because of that trauma.
Say that again?
It was a personality trait from that trauma that came forward.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I'm still rather quiet. I'm not, ever that talkative. But, that was definitely a soul trauma and really helped me to be able to express myself in the world. Before that, it was nearly impossible. Because I was like, like what? Like shame would come over me, fear would come over me, embarrassment would come over me. And on that note, also, like I've always felt like hiding. And so lo and behold, I had a past life of being a leper. And that was one of the darkest, like dark night of the soul as far as lifetimes go. That was probably like the furthest I can remembering being separated from God. Just very, very, very dark and lonely. And so that's a soul trauma. But of course, it was carried over, fractions of that, where why is it always that, even I'm around people, I feel lonely? Now, why is it that, I know I'm a good person, I want to hide, that kind of thing. And so that gave me, when these traumas started unwinding, it was like a big aha. It's like, okay. And then, of course, I don't have to carry it anymore. I got to let it go, which was really the most wonderful part of it.
Right, right. So when we're working with a client, I mean, every client's different. I know that. But how do you come across those soul traumas when you're working on someone?
Well, it's clues that people give you.
Uh,
They say, oh, my shoulder, my shoulders have been hurting forever and I've been doing everything and nothing is helping it. And then I look at the shoulder and I see the shoulder joint is not energized. It is, it doesn't have any energetic respiration. The chakra isn't working because we have, chakras in every joint. The shoulders, the wrists, the thumbs, the fingers, the knees, the hips. So, and then we just, allow it. So the first thing is always, so what if you go there and allow it? Allow the feeling, allow the vision, know that it's safe to be there. And it's not always that a past life, is being pulled up. Sometimes it's just a remnant of a past life and then it disappears. But these big soul traumas, they tend to need a little bit more attention, and they're more like there's more a webbing, in the personality and the, because it's something like, you said it's carried over, but there's a suffering. So, also to be present to it and to allow it and to go in with gentleness. But the biggest thing is really forgiveness. Forgiveness is such a master healer. If we're just willing to speak the words, we don't have to arrive at forgiveness like I'm free, I forgive you now, da da da, like it didn't happen. We just have to be willing to say the words. That's really important to understand.
And potentially, do you have a gift of verbal manifestation because of your soul trauma with your invocations?
Oh, well, our word is powerful, especially when you speak it from a clear vessel, right? When you're in your hara, right? So let me talk about the hara. The hara, a level deeper than the aura, has 4 points. One is the core of the earth. The other one is the dantian, which is, in the area of the second chakra. And it's literally a liquid fireball. Right? And then the third one is here, where, like at the soul seat, where this Larynx is here. And this is where our longing resides. And then the fourth one is, the ID point about it and a foot and a half above the body, and that's our connection with source. So this is a living line that is encoded with our, with our life purpose, so to say, and the longing, our longing guides us to our life purpose. If we're, it's so beautiful and simple, right? That if we're willing to feel our longing, we don't have to have it scripted out, what it is, but just to connect here to the, like, okay, what is the longing of my being? What is the longing of my soul? And what is the longing of my life? And by doing this, I've been able to propel myself forward, because there was nothing in my life that would indicate that I would be successful at anything. Like, when you looked at my early life, and you sort of like evaluate, and it's like, I know that most people would have just committed me to failure, including myself. But you know what? I gave it up. Because that was a belief system that it was just simply not true, because when and if we're willing to listen to our longing, it's like, like that which you really long for just becomes really important. And I always say, so, how you connect with it, you think about, this thing that you dream about, what if it didn't come to happen? Like, how would you feel? Like, what would that be like for you? And if you feel a sense of sadness or loss, then you can be sure that that's part of your longing.
How about anger?
Anger?
Anger and frustration to get there, to get to accomplishing your heart's desire.
Well, I would say allow the anger. Allow it. In the moment when it happens, when you're really angry, say, I allow it, and feel the anger in your body, like feel where it is located.
Right.
And then allow it again and just go deeper with it, because there's, I tell you what, there's longing underneath the anger.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, wow. Where were we? We were talking about soul traumas.
Yeah. It's all together. It's all one thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole system and what you do here. So we got about 15 minutes. I wanted to know, I know that you use pendulums, and I wanted to know if you use any other tools, instruments. Do you mess with the oracle cards or anything like that?
No, the only thing that I use is the pendulum, and I use a bell.
Yes.
This beautiful bell here, which was, everyone had one at graduation from Brennan Healing Science School. And when I ring this bell, the healing space opens up.
I've heard that bell a few times.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a blessing to everyone.
Oh, thank you.
Everyone. Yeah, everyone.
Oh, wow. I don't have a bell.
Oh, bells are wonderful. Yeah.
I have a wah-wah tube right here.
So,
you develop.
I just want to take a moment. So after listening to the bell, you can, think about what you want that ring for the bell to be about. If you want it to ring in your longing, or your inner heart's dream, or some kind of healing in the body, and make that your choice and say thank you. And then that will be supported by spirit.
And you always add, it is my choice.
Yes, because it's really important to know what we're choosing, because then we can be helped best. We can be helped best by the intelligence of life itself and the helpers.
Yes.
Because we've made it clear what our choice is. So, when, let's say, somebody is just in let's say frustration and anger and just venting, right? So when we're in frustration and anger and we're just venting, then sometimes we forget to make a choice. Right? And also I say, a complaint is not a request. Right? Because like sometimes say people, but I've been asking. But then when I'm listening, I'm like, it sounds more like a complaint to me, which is valid. But,
well, sometimes people don't know where the frustration and anger stem from.
Yeah, well, one can ask, but it takes a lot to to bring these things up and process them. But the beautiful thing is about this work is that processing is minimal. We don't have to turn over every little, thing. But what becomes really important is, you know, what you claim,
Hmm.
right? Does one continuously claim one anger as one's identity?
No.
Or, hmm?
So
No.
it's a new thing for me.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
new
So,
thing, so it's like really odd to go through.
yeah, yeah.
It's something's coming up for healing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. It sounds like if you allow yourself to be present to it, that, you will find the longing underneath, it's an unfulfilled longing. That's usually what it is.
Justice.
And others say also, if you go to the anger, what you will find underneath is pain,
Mhm.
but then underneath the pain, when it's like when that gets teased apart, then there is, more light of
Mm.
you.
Oh, talking about that's kind of making space for new stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so I love to talk about like purging and cleaning and moving out that old stagnant stuff that you haven't used this stuff in a year. It's got to go, you know?
yeah, yeah, because everything holds energy. Um, yeah, I do. For myself, I have a really difficult time, with too much stuff and clutter. It makes me actually really uncomfortable, and keeps me from focusing.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's like if we want a new experience, clear out the old, clear out the old clothes that don't fit anymore, that are worn out, that the colors not right anymore, and just keep that which really reflects your essence, and also what you claim, right?
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
does this piece of furniture, clothing, does it, serve me? Or is it just furniture that's in the way and I would rather dance in that place?
right, right. We have more
Yeah,
space to do new activities.
yeah, yeah.
And
So I'm
then
I'm a, I'm, I'm a big fan of clearing things out continuously. And about once a year, I make it a point to, go through my stuff and clear things out. And it's always, and I can feel it, and other people can feel it too. Like my one of my girlfriends, she had like a whole bunch of stuff stored away in all kinds of places, and she decided to clear it out. So I went to her space and I said, wow, your space feels really good. And she says, yes, I just cleared out all of those cupboards and reorganized them, and even so the cupboards were closed, I totally felt the space.
wow, it's
Yeah,
incredible. Like
yeah,
just I watched some other podcasts and they were talking about I don't know who it was. I know it was on Three Beards. Um, about just moving your bed slightly over, and that can make a world of difference and change the energy.
yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you take I in reading your book, I came across salting the mattress.
Oh my God, so important. So, when we've gone through difficult times and illnesses and we're just wallowing, right, in bed, like you can't sleep, or you sleep too much, or you eat in bed, or you're depressed, or, you're really, really sick, right? Changing the sheets is not enough. Um, and I just want to tell a little story. I went to a friend's house, and I don't think this one is in the book. And this particular, really wonderful person was dealing with some neck pain for a really long time and was taking medications because he had horrible headaches. So, we had dinner and I was sitting on the couch talking, and I believe I was sitting in the spot where he usually sits. And then I went home after dinner, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm going, what is going on? And I felt this, and I said, I allow it, right? And you're laughing.
I'm
And
sorry, I'm an empath too.
all of the sudden, I feel this thing moving over me, and I'm going,
Ooh.
oh my God, it's a sofa slug. And I
Oh.
never heard about a sofa slug before. I never encountered it. And I picked it up on his sofa. And I called him up the next day and I said, you're going to think I am so crazy, but I have to say this to you. I said, I picked up a sofa slug off your bed while I was sitting there, not your bed, your couch. And I said, what you need to do is you need to take, 2 pounds of salt and pour it all over your sofa and your cushions and leave it there as long as you can. And then gather the salt and vacuum the sofa and you're fine. And so I went a few weeks later, and he said, I did it. And oh my God, what a different experience. The sofa slug was gone.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah. And he was really looking for a relationship, and he got a relationship shortly after that.
Oh, well, you know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I'm salting everything.
Oh, it's like, and the bed is amazing. If you salt the bed and then you leave it for as long as you can, and you get in afterwards with clean sheet, the energy is sparkling coming off the bed. I had to do it because, went through a difficult time, and also had sleep somebody, like you were sharing a bed, and I just had to clear it out. And the change was amazing, and you sleep so much better afterwards, because all of the the not so good thoughts, right, all of the the turmoil, it settles in, and the the negative belief systems, right, that actually wants to one wants to let go of, they're also there.
The residual, and yeah.
Here's the thing. When I go travel, I always clear the bed, because when I haven't, it's always been a nightmare, and literally a nightmare, because I can feel the trauma of the people who slept there. So, yeah,
It's the hazards. It's the hazards of being an empath and picking up energies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So I highly, highly recommend salting the sofa, salting the bed if you've been ill, if you had a long-standing illness, if you've been depressed, if you want to change the energy, if you want to clear it up after a traumatic breakup, all of that.
And, another healer told me you can put little cups of salt around your rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole intention behind using the salt is to absorb the negative energy and to get rid of it. So just to let people know that works too.
Yeah, I have salt lamps too, but the salt lamps don't clear the bed or the sofa. Right?
Wow, who's been on my sofa? Gee whiz. I wanted to get a new one. So
I was going to say, get a new one.
I was going to, but I'm like, no, it's all right. I'll just clean it. Well, I didn't use salt, so now I am.
Try it out, and let me know.
I will. Oh boy. Oh, everyone, this is a wonderful book. Heart Flame Healing. It will help you. She has a lot of practices in the back of each chapter, as well as the back of the book, that correspond to the days of the week, and exercises and practices that can help you become your own healer, basically.
Yes, and become conscious of your field, become conscious of your centers, and become conscious of the state of the centers, because Mondays relates to the first chakra, grounding, Tuesdays to the second chakra, emotional body, Wednesday to the third chakra, mental body. Thursdays is the heart. Friday is the fifth chakra, divine will. And Saturdays is your third eye, divine love. And Sunday is your seventh chakra, divine light of God, that we uniquely are.
I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I had a really great time. I want to thank our viewers and our future audio listeners for catching this podcast tonight with Karin Inana.
Thank you so much for having me on. Really wonderful to be with you.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.